Ooh, look at these little seedlings. Hi, everyone. Say hello.
Good morning.
Scott, Amy from Sharky's Greenhouses, way up here in Crivitz, Wisconsin, northern end of Wisconsin. And has anyone started seeds at home? So whether it's vegetables or just little plants that you're going to plant out this summer, have you started some seedlings, and did it go well for you, or are you having a little trouble? A lot of people have trouble with...
We've been getting a lot of comments on that.
Yeah. A lot of people have trouble with, most people will start tomatoes at home and they just go like pencils, and it's really hard to do at home. Not that you shouldn't try it, you should. But hopefully today we can give you a few tips on how to do that successfully. So we are at that point now in our greenhouses where we're starting to transplant. We've been seeding our vegetables, and we put them in the propagation chamber so they have the bottom heat, and that just really helps get them to pop up. And this is broccoli, so there's some little baby broccolis.
Do you see how this is the worst that I had?
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, not the greatest germination, but on those some.
No. I meant like they're leaning outward. That's the rest of them are all straight up.
So the reason that they're pointing this way is they were in the propagation chamber, and as soon as they get up and they see that sun, they're going to point towards that sun. So if it's not directly up above,
I was trying to get one that was like really that.
Yeah, and sometimes it's really obvious, that, I forgot, whatever it is, marigolds or something that grows really fast, and all those little seedlings are pointed this way because they're getting a little bit shaded in that propagation chamber.
Especially if people have them in their house. You'll see that they're getting lanky, and they kind of start leaning out towards one direction.
You've got them in a sunny window in your kitchen or whatever, and those little seedlings will really be dramatic. And it's hard to do in the house because there's just not enough sunlight. So you might have to use a grow light. That will help. These are looking really good. They're nice and straight up because as soon as they pop up, and these are Sweet 100, so these are cherry tomatoes. As soon as they pop up for us in the greenhouses, I get them out onto one of the benches so that they'll just go straight up, and they're getting that full blast of sunlight. And like I said, it's hard to do at home. You're probably going to have to use a grow light, and that'll really help. But if they're in an area where they're searching for that sunlight, they're going to stretch.
And maybe even just turning that tray.
Yeah.
Maybe every couple days kind of keep rotating it to make them, if you don't have anywhere else to put them. But some people will plant just, a whole bunch of them because there's so many seeds in a packet.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes. Otherwise, sometimes you get a packet and you're like, oh, wow, I got 3 seeds, for $1.
But when they do that and you have them in your house and you start them too early and they start getting really lanky, what should they do?
Don't start them so early. And, we play this game of when can I plant them outside? For us here in the very upper part of the Midwest, you cannot get your stuff outside too early because they'll just, we have freezes in May, and certainly in May, but sometimes June we've seen.
I just went through every greenhouse season, every single day that we have open for the public. I write down a note on that day of what is the weather, because that fluctuates.
It's good to know.
When our sales are a little bit lower, we're like, oh, well, that's because it was
snowing,
or that's because it was sleeting rain, or we kind of
or it was a sunny day.
We can gauge then, and we can look at that forecast. And I'm a numbers person, so I like to look at all that information. I looked at last year, and we had to close one day because it was such bad weather of so cold that we couldn't have the doors open.
Yeah, because that drives me crazy when we've got the doors open on the greenhouse and the heaters are just pumping, and I'm just heating the yard.
And there's nobody there because it's too cold.
It cost me $300 to heat the yard. So that drives me crazy. So it's good to know, why didn't we have any sales? Or
we look at the record of what the weather has been, and we look at that forecast of what we're expecting. We've been having beautiful weather.
And today's a nice, beautiful sunny day.
Unusually beautiful.
Yeah.
But history has told us this is what happens. So we plant accordingly to not what the weather is outside, but what our calendar looks like.
Yep. You get it's been a decade of history of we know that we can't plant until whatever, and then kind of roll back a little bit. So with
because
seedlings,
if stuff is getting too tall and it's growing too fast,
yep,
you have to go somewhere with it. And if it's in your house, that might mean you have hundreds of tomatoes started in your house. What do you do with them?
Right. So tomatoes, it's an easy fix because tomatoes we can plant deep. And I've showed this before. I don't have any examples, but I've showed you some of the early tomatoes that I started. When they got real tall and lanky, I just shoved them back down into the soil, and they will root all along that stem. And you can't just do that with broccoli or cabbage. You know, it doesn't work for other crops, but for tomatoes, that is a fix that you can go ahead and use that as a fix to correct that. If you have cabbage that's getting just lanky, you really have to get it into the full-on sunlight or use a light, up above that will help get that.
Light.
Yeah, a grow light use a grow light that will help strengthen that and give it what it needs. It's searching. That's why it's getting so lanky, is it's trying to get to the sunlight. So if you give it to them and you put it close to your seedlings, that's going to help. That's going to help thicken up those little seedlings.
So I know your cousin had texted you a picture.
Yeah, I don't remember what she sent me. She sent me a picture
of... I think it was dahlias.
Dahlias? Yeah.
I think she seeded some dahlias.
Get them out into the sun. But, I mean, they were like this. And I mean, just, they weren't any thicker than these little tiny seedlings that are only this big. I mean, it was like, I think you're going to have to start over because I don't see those thickening up, and there's just really nothing you can do. So sometimes you got to start over, learn your lesson, start over, try again.
Start a little later.
Most of the seed is pretty cheap. It's just that, I'm out $1.23, so what? You start it over and try again. Yeah, and when the seedlings are getting what they need, they're going to grow a lot faster than if you started something 3 weeks ago and it's spindly and it's not doing right and it's nutrient deficient, and sometimes it's better just to start over.
Because if they're too spindly, they won't have that structure of the stem to be able to withhold once you do plant them.
Yep.
It'll crack right off.
So one of the questions that we get is, okay, I started some seeds at home, whatever they are, tomatoes or cabbage, whatever.
Flowers, whatever.
Yeah, flowers. When can I start feeding with the Beat Your Neighbor fertilizer? And the answer is about a week or two after they've emerged and they sprouted up. About within 2 weeks for sure, I'm fertilizing with the Beat Your Neighbor fertilizer, and I'm using it as a half strength. In other words, I'm going to thin it down. I'm going to water it, give it a little more water, and it's going to be about half strength. So if it's 1 scoop per gallon, it's going to be 1 scoop for 2 gallons. And so we want a little bit lighter of the potency. So that's when you can start fertilizing. Certainly within 2 weeks, I'm fertilizing with the Beat Your Neighbor fertilizer on new seedlings.
And if they're starting with seed.
Yep. So the other thing that really helps a lot is don't just grab a bag of soil and try to plant in it. You really do need a germinating mix that's going to help greatly with the germination, and it's a very light, airy soil, and that's what those seeds need to be able to push up through. Otherwise, they're going to have a hard time. Sometimes the regular potting soils are real heavy, and they have big, the bark in there, big hunks of things. It's really hard for those seeds to get around that. So use a germinating mix. It's nice and light, and that's what it's designed for.
And why wouldn't they use a germinating mix just for planting?
Because it is so airy. So once you transplant your seedlings into a bigger pot or container, you're going to want to go to just a regular potting mix because it's a little bit heavier. There's nothing wrong with you can use your germinating mix. I like to thin it out with my soil. So it's not like you have to just dump your germinating mix. Go ahead and mix it in with your potting soil, and you can make your own custom mix. I tend to if sometimes the soils are too heavy, I like to thin it down a little bit with some germinating mix. And then I know the germinating mix has a lot of peat moss in it, and that is your moisture control. So I have no problem using it. I just don't use it straight for
because
big plants.
Because it dries out a lot faster.
Yeah, it does. It's so light. So you can mix it 2-to-1, 3-to-1. So that works really nice with the germinating mix. But anyway, so those are a few of the different factors when you're starting seeds at home. Got to get them either into the sunlight or use a grow light. Get it close so that it's not stretching. Use germinating mix. You can use a heating mat. Really helps a heating mat keeping those freshly planted seeds at consistent 85-degree temperature. So that, man, those seeds just pop right up, and your germination rate is going to be way, way higher.
And then also transplanting them at the right time so that they're not getting that real legginess.
Yeah.
That you're getting over them.
And you can see, once you give a little closer shot, we're transplanting these. A lot of people ask, when can I transplant, say, my tomatoes? You can see that they've grown. They have 4 sets of leaves on there already. So they have their seed leaves. The seed leaves are the first little set of leaves that come through that seed. And now it has a few more sets of leaves on there. So now it's ready to be transplanted. They're not so delicate. We can handle them without breaking them. Mm-hmm. So these are certainly ready to be transplanted. And as long as you're not nipping them or breaking them, then they're fine to transplant. And they're pretty sturdy. They're small, but they're pretty sturdy. They're not 12 inches tall and this thin. That's a whole different ballgame. If you got seedlings that are just stretched, you really need them to thicken up. And then again, with the Beat Your Neighbor fertilizer, use a half strength. Within 2 weeks, you can start fertilizing them.
I hope that helps.
Yeah. So good luck with seeding. Don't be afraid of it. Learn. You learn by trying and making mistakes and trying it again.
Unfortunately, we're still early enough in the season that
if you
had them started and they didn't work out,
give it another
shot, and this year you'd still be fine.
Yeah, because you can make time by fertilizing a little bit heavier a little bit later on. I mean, you can catch up and surpass little seedlings that you had started 3 weeks prior.
Especially with how sunny it is.
Yeah, exactly. Once we started getting the days are getting longer, so that those little transplants, they're gonna grow fast. So you'll catch up. So don't be afraid of trying again. All right.
Have a great day.
See ya. Bye-bye.